where they provide certifications and
Mm-hmm.
cryptocurrency, real estate transactions, and this type of thing. So it could be
It could,
something very quickly moving and happening here in South Florida, thanks to two things. Francis Suarez, making this or trying to make this the mecca for crypto, and
mm-hmm.
also the Chinese throwing everybody out of China.
Yeah, pretty much they're going to be buying a lot of they've been as of lately they have been buying a lot of properties. A lot of the Chinese investors have been buying a lot of properties over in Texas. From what I read, one realtor sold a couple of Chinese investors almost 200 homes in like a week because they were buying properties over there because of the large developments they have over there. I reached out to my client who was actually looking because I'm looking for her a condo rental over in Brickell, a penthouse, something to rent. So she's going to let me know her schedule and see whether or not she's going to be able to make it to our conference as well in October. So I mean, it's
Oh,
very
that's
interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. She's been studying this like for the last 15, 20 years when even cryptocurrency even first came out. So it's very interesting how Mayor Suarez is making Southwest really not now the epicenter for cryptocurrency. Hi, Tony.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Excellent, thank you.
Hi,
How
Tony. How's it going?
Hello, Steve. How you doing?
how are you going to follow up on a discussion on cryptocurrency on August? You better
Yeah,
you
Tony,
better
you're the
make it
man. Tell us
exciting.
everything you know about crypto.
Oh man, I don't know, but I could probably ask my sons and they can give us a little lesson. They love it and track it and follow it.
Exactly. Don't you see the younger generation? They love cryptocurrency and they are tracking it hard and they know exactly how it works and everything. So I'm learning, as I say, from the millennials about cryptocurrency and what to invest in.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting as it evolves. And the amazing thing about that whole sector is the speed with which things happen. It's just crazy. So
Yeah, and
it's
how yeah, it is, and it's just a way of how cryptocurrency is working its way into the real estate market for us with buying and selling of residential and also commercial properties. So this is something that we definitely need to be on pace with because we're going to see a lot more of these transactions happening.
well, it sounds like we have another topic for discussion
Hmm.
at a future clubhouse. We could have a crypto discussion and how it impacts commercial real estate. There's a lot of money that I don't know if they call them crypto whales. I think people that invested a while back and now their investments have built up into tens of millions or more, and they're perfect people to invest in commercial real estate. So that's definitely something that we need to get together and tap into. Is
Yes.
that all that money that's sitting there, and maybe they want to give it a less speculative home in terms of getting some returns because the crypto can't continue to go up that forever, or can it? Well, we'll see. We'll see how that evolves. Michael, you were inviting your friend Peter Kozelinsky from Yardi. Can you give him a call? Is that him?
Sure, sure. PK is here in the room.
Oh,
Tamika, if you bring him up on the
bump him
stage.
right up. Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah,
folks,
I'm
I
going to bring him on
appreciate it.
stage. Yeah, he's on stage. Tony,
I'm very excited
PK. Okay.
to bring Peter on board. He works with Commercial Edge. He does a lot of their research. I'll let him introduce himself. But there was just an article yesterday about how Miami is one of the two cities that has decreased our vacancy in the office market, whereas the country has increased their
I know somebody
vacancy.
was yelling or a dog was barking there. Sounds like somebody was saying "Yay!"
Sorry,
Yeah.
that was my cat. I'm sorry.
Hey
So
everybody, how are you? Peter
I want
Kolozinski here
to
from Commercial Edge.
bring Peter up on the stage to give us some commentary and some insight on why Miami is bucking the trend from the rest of the country. So welcome, Peter.
Hi everybody, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Peter. I see you with the party hat
Awesome,
on too.
great. So this is my first Clubhouse call. So thanks for the invite, Michael, and yeah, happy to be here.
But one of the things before we start, I know Stephen and Tamika are going to make an important announcement about how we are broadcasting this, simulcasting this to multiple platforms. We appreciate all of you joining us here on this website, on Clubhouse. But we're excited because we're going to have some exclusives on Clubhouse. But we've taken the step to make sure these conversations have a lot more reach. So I know it's almost noon, and I know Stephen is going to mention a few of those that we're broadcasting to. And we very thankful for David Garcia and for Daniel Zapata for helping make this happen. So I'm going to be quiet for the rest of it unless you need me, which I doubt you will.
You want to take it away, Stephen?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Paul, for the setup there. Yeah, we do want to mention, we want to welcome everybody to what I think is our fourth or fifth clubhouse that we're doing. This is Miami Commercial Realtors. And we're getting together every week to talk about different sectors and things that are happening in the commercial real estate space in South Florida and really nationally as well, just to be on top of trends and other things that are going on. Along the lines of what Paul Cauchi, our esteemed chief of commercial here at Miami Realtors, was alluding to, we have now for the first time, thanks to David Garcia and the IT team at Miami Realtors, we are simulcasting on Facebook Live, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and so this conversation can be picked up over there. Although on those platforms, just go to Miami Commercial Realtors page, and you can hit up that link, and you can go to one of those pages: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and I think one other. But for people who want to participate in the conversation, of course, you have to be on Clubhouse. If anybody needs an invite or a link or something, if you can't get it on your own, we can send it to you, and you can pull your associates in to join in the conversation. So we're excited to begin. Today, we thought that it was time to bring in a heavy hitter commercial office broker, Tony Puente, and talk about what the trends are in commercial office space in the context of the reopening of the economy from a few months back, how trends are flowing in urban and suburban areas, and just generally the outlook today and going forward for commercial office space. So Tony Puente with Fairchild Partners, good friend of mine. I think I've known him for 30 years, maybe more. Can't remember. So go ahead, Tony. Tell us what's going on in commercial office space.
Yes, Steve, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, we don't have to be reminding each other how long we know each other. Let's just keep kind of looking forward, and hopefully we'll get another 30 years behind us here, in this great business that we're in and so forth. But yeah, appreciate your inviting me on the show. Obviously, the last 24 months have been, ups and downs within the commercial real estate office space, which is where I spend most of my time in Miami-Dade County, Broward County, South Florida in general, both representing landlords and representing tenants and so forth. So, I always like to open up these kind of conversations, really thanking our forefathers from 40 or 50 years ago, because that the vision that they had in the 1950s and 1960s when they spent municipal money and they built the Miami Seaport and they built the Miami Airport at a time when the city of Miami and Miami-Dade County and Broward County were just, small towns, places really that were in between, Chicago and Cuba, let's say, back in the heydays of Havana, Cuba in the 40s and 50s. And they spent a tremendous amount of money, and they really built the two ports that are really the engines to South Florida and really the engines to all economies, right? And a part of that is the growth of the office market, over the last, 30 or 40 years. Kind of forward winding into today's world, 2020, we all know what happened. A lot of things came to a standstill. We were all sent home. Corporate offices around the entire country were empty. I think in most of our accounts that we represent, it got as low as 5-10% of people were actually occupying the offices for the first 6 months, right? So from March, I guess March 12th of 2020 through almost the end of the year, but not quite. People were not mandated to go to the office. People were electing not to go to the office, and it had to do with a lot of factors. Obviously, when the economy shut down and kids are not in school and everybody's working out of the house, you really can't choose to go to the office and so forth. I'd say, activity in 2020 was not nil, but it was close to nil. I mean, it dropped significantly, especially those first 6 months after March 12th. There was a few transactions and a few deals that were done with businesses that just knew that maybe their business plan was working during the COVID, and they felt that they needed to kind of keep the course. It all started. So for 2020, as a summary, was definitely a year in Miami-Dade County and Broward County that we had our first real year of some pretty I guess significance is the right word, even though it was not overwhelming, of negative absorption, right? From 2012, when the economy started hovering again, through 2018, 2019, we had consistent growth for office tenancy. We had consistent growth for occupancy, and our vacancies really were getting down under, probably 15% overall. I'd say since 2020 until now, and with that negative absorption, overall Miami-Dade County is probably hovering around 18 or 19% vacancy. And again, that's really a reflection of buildings, let's say kind of the mainstream buildings, right? Probably the 40 million square feet in Miami-Dade County that, let's say, don't include buildings under 30,000 square feet, don't include medical buildings or headquarters, but really buildings that compete with each other for tenants, of let's say 1,000 or 2,000 square feet and up. It all changed. It all started to change towards the end of 2020, and really, we saw a tremendous increase in activity and demand in first quarter of 2021, which really has continued for the most part in the second quarter and third quarter of 2021. I'd say that the activity level or the amount of prospects in the marketplace for the last few months all over Dade County has probably been about 1.5 million square feet of activity.
That's amazing, Tony. Would you say, in your professional opinion, that the focus is more urban or it's more suburban as far as office locations, or is it just a mix, the same as it's always kind of been? How would you characterize that?
Sure, Steve. So I'd say the first wave of tenancy that started to create activity in the market, late 2020 and first quarter of 2021, was really led by new to market tenant demand from the Northeast, from New York, from California. The three major industries that were causing this activity, and we're starting to see actual leases signed, have been basically in the technology industry, in the wealth management, and wealth management, banking, financial, family offices. In addition to some of the professional service entities that did not have a presence in Miami, some of the law firms and accounting firms that maybe did not have a presence in Miami over the last few years that have decided that Miami is slowly but surely being accepted by everybody as a tier 1 city. And that demand initially came through the urban areas, right? I could tell you Brickell Avenue has attracted the most, but you've also seen activity in downtown Miami. You've seen activity in Wynwood. The big one was Blackstone really committing to a building for over 40,000 square feet, and that was
Exactly.
kind of probably back in February. And I think once they announced their expansion here out of New York and their commitment to Miami and South Florida, I think that really opened up other entities and other companies to feel comfortable signing leases. And since then, we've seen quite a few. I think today's paper had
Yeah.
Apollo Global
Apollo.
Management. Yeah, Apollo deciding to initially share some space with Greenberg Torrig, and that's in the local Herald today. And along with that, there's probably 15 or 15 or 20 other companies that are all in different sizes, looking at signing leases all over the urban area. And then just to end that question, as a result of that, in the last probably 120 days, activity has now upticked in all these suburban markets, right? So Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Doral, Waterford Lagoon. I mean, everybody we're
I have
talking to right now is active. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a question. So do you see a slowdown of any of these companies coming down here? Because I know a lot of the big hedge funds and everyone is coming down here for Carl Icahn and everything. Now, do you see any of these developers switching over to doing more office development? And also, do you think they're going to go into the lower urban areas such as your Liberty City, your Alapata? Do you see any more office development coming along in those areas?
So, very good question. We're definitely so up until a couple of years ago, it seemed like the developers that were focused on residential were outbidding and outperforming, acquiring any opportunities and any vacant sites that were available, right? Because residential was the kind of sweetheart return that all these investors and owners and developers were looking for. Because we've now seen this uptick in office, because rents have actually started to go up again pretty significantly in some of the key markets like Brickell Avenue, where there's already been a couple of leases recorded over $80 per square foot. Again, some of the better buildings, some of the better views. I do see some of these markets getting a lot of attention. For instance, Wynwood was a market in kind of the west of Biscayne Boulevard, around the 395 area, just east of I-95. That 10 years ago was an area that was basically just inhabited by older buildings, C buildings,
Hmm.
warehouses, and with the help of the city of Miami, with the rezoning, with developers taking a chance on these kind of areas, it is amazing. You go now and
Exactly.
you visit those restaurants and you visit those brand new office buildings, 545 Wynn, to mention one of them that I was just
Hmm.
in recently. They built, they have built and they are building a neighborhood, and it is gathering attention, and it will succeed. It is succeeding. So it's not
Okay.
100% there yet, but it's coming.
All right, I got part two of that question. So you're saying how Wynwood is spreading over. Now let me ask you something. Do you see Wynwood spreading east of 95?
I
East of 95 or west of 95, excuse me, west of 95, going more to the Liberty City area corridor because the proximity of one between Liberty City and Brickell. Would you envision any type of major businesses now looking over there on the west side of 95 in the Liberty City area due to the proximity just right there? You have Wynwood, Brickell, and all these other areas.
Well, there is a lot, Tony, as you know, happening in the medical district there surrounding Jackson, and which is a little bit south of Alapata. So I think that's going to be growing to the north quite a bit, and then Alapata is really exploding. It's a little bit more of a niche market, I guess, but I think over the long term, with the prices a little lower there than Wynwood, that's going to continue to grow. What do you think about that?
So, absolutely. So, historically, these areas tend to first redevelop some residential and redevelop some of the infrastructure in those areas. Once you get that population growth, the businesses follow because there's still value there for these businesses. There's value there for these developers, to turn around an area and work with the local individuals and the local municipalities to try to really create neighborhoods that work for everybody, right? And we've seen it. Listen, it's happened in areas of Coconut Grove,
Mm-hmm.
some of those areas we're on the west side of Coconut Grove. We're seeing that redevelop significantly. So it typically starts with the residential and some of the retail associated with the residential, and then that business, the office, the flex space, the other high-end retail products tend to come in once you have that population growth. And yes, I do see it coming because ultimately businesses and developers go where there's value, and because the prices in these other areas are rising, they're going to turn around and look at these call
Exactly.
it tertiary markets, and it's the hole in the donut that will be filled.
Yeah, because that east side is getting way more expensive. So now they have to go a little. They have to go west now. There's no more land on that side. Okay.
So so let's take a little detour, not detour, but a shift over, and let's we kind of got to give Peter Kozinski, sorry, an opportunity to talk, and maybe from a statistical data, real estate data standpoint, you
Yeah.
could confirm and elaborate on some of the things that Tony had to offer.
No, I agree with Tony with Wynwood especially. We're tracking right now about just under 2.5 million square feet of office development. Over 90% of that is the Class A stuff. Again, focusing in most of it's in the urban areas. So we are seeing some suburban development, but the majority of that is in the urban areas too. But I thought that 2.5 million number was it's substantial.
And that's 2.5 million of new construction,
New construction, under construction right now.
Right. And
and
that, Peter, that
counting.
number may have some buildings that are just finishing, like let's say Gables Plaza and Coral Gables, a
Sure.
couple buildings in the Coconut Grove market that are on the either just CO'd or entertaining the occupancy of their first tenants. But looking forward, you probably have about a million that have just delivered, about to deliver, and maybe another million and a half that are still under development. Specifically, the largest one of that is the one on Brickell Avenue behind the 800 Brickell that Oco's developing. That's a 650,000 square foot office building, which is a significant portion of that amount.
And that's the one that's asking top rents too, right?
That's the one that is, as the newest building on the market. Yeah,
It's
they're
over 80 a
definitely,
foot.
yeah, they're quoting anywhere between $70 to $85 per square
Yeah.
foot.
Yeah.
So, if I may, I want to ask Tony or Peter, are we seeing any concessions? Because I'm seeing a lot of companies right now still hesitant to make long-term commitments because of COVID. They're willing to do 1, 2, 3, 5 year renewals and stuff, but with all this 2.5 million of vacant space and a lot of hesitancy on long-term office market, are we seeing? I mean, Tony, you're talking about $70, $80 rents, but what kind of free rents and what kind of TI dollars and things like that are we seeing on to
Sure,
enhance to
sure.
get those?
So I mean, overall, as a blanket statement, I can tell you that rents are holding or increasing across the board.
Agree with that.
But I will say, along with that, concessions have creeped up a little bit, and by that I mean specifically, the free rent offer or that initial offer of tenants not paying rent for a period of time, depending on the lease term, anywhere from 3 months maybe up to 8 months, right? And in addition, and then on the tenant improvements, landlord will do what it takes to develop a space that they call their standard for that particular building and not expose the tenant to anything, to any of those tenant improvement dollars. Now, if the tenant wants something specific, then of course that could become a potential tenant cost, right? But in terms of term, interestingly enough, and I'm finishing up probably announce it next week, finishing up a Fortune 500 9,000 square foot lease in Coconut Grove. We're doing an 8 year term. We're finishing up a very large, medical component type facility in Doral that's going to be a very long term lease. All these tech companies that we're talking about, and we were mentioning earlier, all these are 7 to 12 year leases. I hear you on that statement, and some of the smaller local kind of mom and pop type of operations, which is our bread and butter, right? I mean, that's 90% of our market. Some of those groups are a little hesitant on signing leases, longer than, let's say, a few years. But it is not, and again, we all know COVID's going through a little bit of a shift in the last few weeks. We're not sure. Up until 36 days ago, I would have told you that occupancy in the buildings, in terms of people, people back to buildings, was probably going to be at 90% after Labor Day, right? Like everybody was coming back. I don't know if this latest COVID threat we're under is going to change that or not. I guess it's too early to tell. But Labor Day was becoming a big, goal line for a lot of corporations, mandating or demanding or asking their employees to come back. And we'll see what happens here in the next few weeks. But
Yeah.
not really. The terms, the tenants are signing long-term leases.
Yeah, Tony, I was at a CFAM lunch in Fort Lauderdale, and one of the property managers said most of the Class A office towers in Fort Lauderdale, of course, this was a month ago, he said they're only 35 to 45% occupied. I mean, they're fully leased, but as far as people sitting at their desks, 35 to 45%. So that's under 50%. I just wonder about, again, some of these rollovers and these tenants wanting to commit to the full floor for another 5 or 10 years.
Right, right. And that's a good point. I'd say in the buildings we're tracking and we're very close to, it was up over 65% up until a few weeks ago. And I don't have real recent numbers as of today, but it had gotten back up to like 65% in at least the buildings. And now I personally track more suburban buildings. So the urban core, the Brickell Avenue, the downtown Fort Lauderdale, corporate America is the last group to send or mandate
Yeah.
or ask their employees to come back. So those were the ones that were coming after Labor Day. That may change now. That's a good point. But I'll tell you, you still have not had, you haven't had a significant amount of subleases come to market, even though we've doubled. Let's say we probably had 200,000 square feet of subleases before COVID. We probably have 500,000 now. But in a 40, 45 million square foot market, that's still not a driving factor or a factor that's going to turn somebody's head and create a lot of concern to some of these landlords. But again, yes, corporate America, that Labor Day date was the key. We'll see if that shifts or not.
Hey,
So
hey,
nationally,
Peter.
yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, Peter. I wanted to ask you. You had an article that came out, I guess, yesterday or the day before about why Miami is bucking the trend from the rest of the country. Can you elaborate a little bit on why Miami is different from the rest of the country?
Sure. So I think actual occupancy, right, of the space is one thing versus like the space being vacant. So nationally speaking, the average is about 30 to 35% of people are back in the office. Texas continues to lead the way on that. And then you have the San Francisco and New York, which are low teens. But I don't have a specific number on Miami there. However, my take is it's probably closer to that Texas number than it is in the New York or San Francisco numbers. So probably something like Tony was saying, 40% would be something that I would have had a guess on. Definitely going to get delayed. That seems to be the consensus with corporations. Is everyone's kind of pushing things back now. I think Amazon yesterday said they're not requiring people to come back until next year, right? That's a big statement. When it comes to Miami, I feel like being closer to Texas and getting people back in the office sooner has definitely had an effect on lowering the vacancy rates. Now, I know, Tony, you were quoting a little bit higher numbers than we have. I think we are probably pulling from a little bit larger data set too, which can stand for the difference.
Yeah.
We're closer more for like 15.5% going down to closer to 14 now when it comes to vacancy rates. Agree across the board with, and this isn't just Miami, this is everywhere where people are asking us, the rental rates and the asking rates are flat or increasing, yet we're seeing vacancy rise for the last year all across the board. What's going on? And my response continues to be on that back end with some sort of concessions being that kind of hidden number that we're not hearing enough about. But the rates really, you're bringing these new products on. They're asking top dollar, and it's causing an increase.
So Tony, in terms of the different aspects of the market, do you think that the strongest part of the market is in the smaller users, say in the Doral or West areas, the suburban areas? And what type of concessions do you think people are looking for based on today versus whatever 2019? Has it strengthened? Has it weakened since then? Because I've heard it both directions. What's your take on
Yeah,
that?
yeah. And your point about both direction is definitely something we're all trying to get our hands around. But let me say this: buildings and office parks and suburban centers that have created that mixed use concept, live, work, play, learn environment where they've got office buildings and residential and retail and stores, like a downtown Doral in Doral that done developed by the Codina partners, and buildings that have reinvested in their, landlords and developers that have reinvested in their buildings to take them from a C to a B, from a B to A, and put them as a part of these communities. Those are the ones that are outperforming the one-off, freestanding, nowhere to walk back to your house to types of buildings across the board. And I'm talking Miami, but I have a feeling this is going on across the country and across the state, right?
Suburban centers, right? Like
Yes.
these little nodes that
It,
have people congregate around. Agree with that.
if you have created these areas and you've reinvested in older buildings or built new buildings, you're leading the market right now. There is no doubt about it. And kind of the resurgence of Coconut Grove, the Wynwood, Doral, Coral Gables, obviously from a historical perspective. So to answer your question, Steve, the second part of that, rents are the same or up from 2 years ago. Free rent and TIs are probably up a little bit from a landlord's perspective. And terms are still the terms. Landlords are not doing, if you want to come in and do a 2-year term, landlords are not really going to do anything special. They're going to kind of say, hey, if you like the space, take it. There's the rate, but no changes to the space and no free rent, right?
Yeah, and I
One thing
think
I would say, sorry, go ahead, Stephen, is I keep hearing about this flight to quality, right?
Yes,
And,
yes,
and this
yes.
flight to high quality. And Blackstone's the perfect example. Tamika, I think you brought that up earlier. And
Yes,
then having their
they
lease,
follow.
then they buy the building, and it's a substantial investment. So you've seen like the top end of the market and this flight to quality will continue to be a thing. My take is you also have the bottom end of the market is where you have the maybe not as much as an investment, but as for leases, where you're still going to have people looking for deals, and I think you'll still see action on the bottom end of the market. My larger concern, and to the point you just made, Tony, about these standalone suburban office buildings, is that like firmly Class B, lower. It's not the nicest, it's not the worst, but that whole kind of middle 30% is where you're going to see the hardest time right now.
Yeah, correct. And
let me
to add to the mixed use, schools now, charter schools, private schools, and places to eat and so forth. It's all, the more you can combine the right mix and the right mix of different product types, it's really pulling hard these tenants. And yeah, that flight to capital is as you said, is the right phrase.
Are we going to start being? Are we going to start seeing more mixed use developments with office, live, work, and play over the I'll say in the near future? I see more of those developments coming along.
I've seen some developments across the country where there was initially supposed to be office, where they're throwing in apartments now for sure.
Hmm.
And maybe you had a footprint of 500,000 square feet of office, so maybe you make the half of that, right, for these projects that haven't started yet, just in the planning phases. Make it half of that, and then add a substantial amount of apartments, and I think that's definitely going to be a situation.
Yeah, a perfect example of that. Tony, you know a lot about this property, the River Landings property that was featured in one of the recent CCIM lunch and learns.
Yep.
Um, how many apartments? It's apartments, retail.
It's,
What else is at that property? They got a lot of things going on there. That's a perfect example of what you guys are just describing.
yeah, perfect example of a developer having foresight on a site very close to the civic district, that medical civic district that you discussed earlier, and close to Metro Rail Station, right on the highway, 5 minutes from Brickell Avenue, and you now have people that are living there, working there, and shopping at Publix all in the same day, right? And it's a super neat project if none of you guys have been by there.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because that is a situation where development is going to push its way north from there on the north side of the river, north into Alapata and
Yes.
continue the strength of that market. And then all the hospital, University of Miami building is there on 20th Street and 7th or 20th Street and 7th Avenue. Um,
But
there's
yeah,
a lot happening there, and it's just pushing all kinds of development north, and
yeah,
that's going to be a great thing for the area.
exactly. I mean, it's not just pushing right into Alapata. We still have those other pockets of area. We still have the Overtown development where they're getting ready to do a huge development over there with the Target Center and everything. We have the Liberty City area where they're also redeveloping as well. So they're going to continue to keep on pushing up north because northwest is prime real estate.
100%.
And also with the whole, you know, rising tide with the sea level rise and all that in the very long term, people want to be at the higher ground. So those older areas that are where people settled originally, that's why they were there, because the ground is higher. So that's another interesting aspect of making those areas so much more valuable.
Exactly.
We have some other people on the stage here. I just wanted to get to them and not give anyone the cold shoulder any longer. Chepe is here, the president of the Florida CCIM chapter. What do you have for us today, Chepe? Do you have any comment on what you've been hearing?
Chefe, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Sorry, I
How you?
couldn't find the
No,
mute. I'm
not a
I'm new to
problem.
the system.
Not a problem. So, do you have any comments that you want to add on to the conversation about this office space?
Listen, on office space, it's very interesting because usually I don't do offices, and right now I have two offices that I'm leasing on. I have an office that I'm leasing in Doral and an office that I'm trying to lease with Michael Hinton in Coral Gables. So it is very interesting how it is moving, even though this new search on the COVID has changed a little bit the minds of people. Like one of the customers that I was working with, they wanted 3,000 square feet. Now they want only 2,000 because they realize that not everybody's going back. But hearing that, I think the adjustment up on rental prices in the areas that we're looking at, Doral and Coral Gables, are amazing. Now, hopefully Michael will give me good tenant improvements for my customers so we can sign this deal. One of the things that they don't want long term. They want to be able to get out of the lease for pandemic or any other questions on that. But it is very interesting, and I think that Tony, which is one of the experts here, is giving us a fantastic perspective of what's going on. We're gonna have a big influence of office space coming, and demand of office space coming from the Northeast and the West, and we know it as a fact because we are an open state and we will be an open state forever. So, and I mean until we have DeSantis as governor. So that's more or less what I think.
Okay.
Thank you, Chepe,
Thank you,
for your input there. One of the things
Kevin.
I wanted to mention was with the assistance of Miami Commercial Realtors and Paul Cauchi, we've been working on our enhanced commercial marketplace, which takes place the first and last Thursday of each month. We've done some, and these are marketplaces haves and wants sessions where we can reach out to other markets and talk with them about their availabilities and investment potential back and forth between our markets. So we've talked with the Realtor Board from Orlando. We've talked with, like a Zoom call, the Realtor Board from Toronto. And I'm bringing this up because we're in the planning stages of setting up a discussion with the Puerto Rico Realtor Board, as well as the San Jose, Santa Clara County, which is basically Silicon Valley Realtor Board. We're going to get that established probably for October. And then we're also going to do one with New York City, Long Island Realtor Board. So we want to, capture the conversation so we can have these investment flow discussions on bringing new office tenants and companies and investors from those markets into our markets, possibly from our markets into theirs. But the main the rest of the conversation is really about bringing more people to South Florida, and we're trying to facilitate that activity by setting up these conversations. So thanks very much to Paul Couchy and Miami Commercial for facilitating these conversations. More to come on that. It was a little commercial for Miami Realtors, but after all, it is the Miami Realtors Clubhouse. So on to Kevin. Kevin, what do you have to tell us about what's happening from your perspective?
Hey guys, good afternoon. Appreciate the invitation to the stage. Um, been listening in. Tony, thanks for participating. Always good energy from you and insights. I don't have a lot to contribute today. I've actually got a kind of half day as I'm going up for a little staycation in Stewart. But yes, still working in Brickell and the downtown markets as Rise Realty's core office tenancy. We do across Dade and Broward as well. I do want to introduce, if you all are looking at the room and scroll down and see a handsome gentleman named Francisco, that's Ramirez. He works with the Line One solution, so I brought him in. He's got years of office experience, and what a Line One Solutions does is um, help prospective tenants lay out virtually what their office might look like. So that's what Align One Solutions does. You guys probably know similar um, architectural designs, but it seems like a great solution. So I'm just trying to continually bring people into this Miami Commercial Realtors network that we've got.
And we
That's
greatly
great,
appreciate
Kevin.
it. Thank you so
Go,
much, Kevin.
go, go ahead, Francisco. Tell us, give us 30 seconds on what you guys can provide to our members. Oh, looks
Um,
like Francisco was here and now he's not.
no, I will try to bring him back up, but we can go on to our next people, our next two members that we have on the stage while I bring him back up. Richard, do you have anything to contribute?
Thank you, Tamika, and as always, thank you everyone for just the interesting conversation. And I love, well, this it's not hard; it's a low bar. I always love hearing people smarter than me, and I just learned so much. Tony, I do have a question for you. You mentioned that you follow, you track um, suburban communities and how they can attract or how they develop office space. What would you say that the communities down in South Dade would need to do? I feel they're missing out on a lot of the buzz that's happening in our latest boom, and I understand why. But what can South Dade do? Particularly, for instance, Homestead has done a lot of investment in itself. They're trying to develop a core area. Palmetto Bay is developing a downtown Palmetto Bay as much as it is. What is it that they have to overcome, sir?
Hey, Richard. Great question. I'll tell you what. When we're interviewing, and I was actually with a group at dinner last night, a technology company from New Jersey that is going to. They're just, again, a lot of these companies. Some of them are large, like the Blackstones, but a lot of them are coming in just looking for 3, 4, 5,000 square feet, maybe 10 or 15 employees, and kind of putting their feet in the water, their toe in the water. But I'll tell you, when we're interviewing these companies and really asking them, where do you want to be in Miami-Dade County? Where do you want to operate and so forth? Inevitably, the two things that come up are the three items that come up are where do people live, right? Where can I send my kids to school? And where are my competitors? So from South Dade's perspective, you know, and definitely, listen, they've come a long way, and they've ramped up their speed of growth here in the last year like never before, right? So they could be onto something. You could be onto something. Your clients could be onto something. But I think if the school system, and whether it's the private schools, the charter schools, the public schools, which are all kind of battling each other a little bit, continue to develop, quality schools that get a good reputation, that executives want to send their kids to, and so forth. I think that could be a key to some of that down there. We all know it's a little south. It's a little far from Miami International Airport. If population grows down there too much, you have really that one major highway. You take the turnpike and then I-95 south. But little by little, you're seeing companies make decisions to go down there. I mean, obviously, the boating industry started it many years ago. Amazon announced not too long ago. I hope they do something more than just soft military with the airport. I don't know if that's another potential, the Homestead Air Force Base, if that's another potential area that we as community activists and citizens can try to to enhance into something other than just a soft military airport down there. But I think residential schools, and then the office tenants will follow, right? And I am talking to a couple of groups that are thinking about doing some projects down there on the office side. So stay tuned on some of that. But yes, it's a lot of heavy lifting for a lot of people to get it to where it is now, and then looking forward the next 5 years.
Well, I'll step away. Thank you for that. That was really that's really something feasible, and something that we can hold on to work on, by virtue and by the grace of the Miami commercial. Chepe was kind enough to allow me to participate as the realtors representative on the South Dade Chamber, and I've since moved up. That's something that we can actually work on together, and I'd like to talk to you about that. So thank you for that insight. I appreciate that.
Tamika, could I chime in again? This is Kevin.
Yes, you can go ahead and chime in, Kevin. Then we're gonna
I
go next to Craig.
I just figured
Go
I'd
ahead.
share that I saw some news. A lot of you guys know I live in Miami Beach. I pay a lot of attention to stuff going on here. The politicians, passively for a year, tried to lay out office development. So two things happened. One, just yesterday, they announced that there's a Manhattan finance firm that decided upon a Class A office here, and then the other thing is, just last month, the city's municipal parking lots next to Lincoln Road were put out for RFP to construction developers to build Class A offices. So expect, along with the Wynwoods of the world, Class A office development on this side of the island because of the livability and attractiveness. The politicians trying to work on a year-round market rather than a hospitality tourist market.
Hey guys, this is Francisco. I'm sorry I got cut out for a second, but I wanted to give you a perspective, if it's okay to just give you some of the office on what we see on the interior and architecture that impacts a lot of commercial real estate. As a company that tailors pretty much anything with interiors on a full turnkey, we are seeing a lot of companies, whether they be in the law firms and professional services or even construction, technology, private wealth, and hospitality, even not pull back on their commitments of bringing back their employees. Now, the design interior wise might have become more of hybrid models that's impacting that come back to work, but we're still seeing many companies still being committed, even though there might be a little bit of pullback between the variant pandemic. And still, it is just full business commitment on a lot of what we're seeing. Now, what we have seen impact a lot is product wise, whether it be some glass has impacted, material wise, on lead times, and that has slowed down a little bit, which you guys are probably aware. There are some materials that have impacted the furniture aspect of interiors, and also labor has impacted a little bit on the lead times and project management. So that is kind of just a quick pulse of my 2 cents on what we are seeing as far as the interior architecture landscape. And I'm happy to answer anything else if you guys want.
Thank you so much, Francisco. Stephen and Paul, do you have anything else to add before I move on to Craig, to what Francisco was discussing?
No, let's go ahead and hear from Craig.
Hey,
Thanks. Go
Craig,
ahead,
how are
Craig.
you?
Hey everyone, how you doing today?
Grading yourself.
All right, all right. So I'm happy to hear that we're going to do some things with the California realtors because I think we're starting to see in the office market Bitcoin and tech companies come over and absorb some of our office space. I think the most recent situation was over on the beach on Linux that a Bitcoin mining company took up some WeWork space, which was very interesting. And of course, we have FTX, which is the naming rights awardee of the arena, the Heat Arena, and they've taken up some office space. So I guess what I'm bringing to the conversation is, um, what are we seeing, or what are our thoughts, our forecasts on tech companies and crypto companies coming over and absorbing some of this space?
I, I mean, I'll take a shot at that. No doubt,
Please.
no doubt, demand is growing in that sector. We're seeing it. They're starting to take space, and I can tell you what we're doing right as a city is there is a lot of communication and a lot of energy, and emerge has really taken the leadership on this in the last few years. The initial convention that started by Manny Medina, but I can tell you there's a lot of conversations with all our schooling down here. So University of Miami, Florida International, St. Thomas, etc. They are really identifying what programs they want to put in to get employees properly educated so that when they graduate, they can go work for all these groups that you're talking about, like Bitcoin, et cetera. And I think that's come a long way in the last few years because historically that was one of the bigger issues, right? You guys don't have the employee base for us to recruit down there at the level of quality or education that we need. And I can tell you that is changing by day. And there's so many programs. The Knight Foundation has been sponsoring a lot of different groups and so forth. So I think that's what really, look, who doesn't want to live in Miami, sunny, good weather, low income tax state and so forth. But if you can then, along with that, put in the right talent, to be able to fill your company with the right employees, I think that's the key. And yes, it is growing significantly. And there's a lot of organizations you can get involved with to get on the front end of that.
And thank you, Craig and Tony, for addressing that point. On October 1st, we have our commercial. Sorry, we're holding it at the Miami Commercial Realtors is holding it at the Biltmore Hotel in the morning, October 1st. And we're going to put together a panel discussion with some renowned people that we're reaching out to talk about the development and the evolution of cryptocurrency and as it relates to commercial real estate. So it should be a very interesting discussion. I hope people are able to attend that. And if you have the opportunity to join our group, if you're not a part of this already, please join our Miami Commercial Realtors group here on Clubhouse. So you'll be informed every week when we're about to have our discussion. That's great, and I hope people are able to attend the October 1st conference, the commercial conference coming up. That'll be fabulous. Tamika, do you have something more to review? Are we wrapping it up? What do you?
It's 12:47 right now, so I wanted to get any insight for anyone else who wants to add any more insight of what they've been seeing in the office space.
Tamika, may I say
Yes,
something? This is
yes, please, Shepard. You can go ahead and
yeah,
say something.
yeah. There are two very important things that I got from what we were talking. It is that one of the biggest concerns and problems that everybody has with about the influences of these incoming offices and the residential market. Just to put it in perspective, people are saying that the locals cannot pay the rent. We see an adjustment of almost 1,000 people a day coming to the state of Florida. But people that are coming, especially to Miami, they're in these two specific coin bases or coin market and the financial market. They're coming with the salaries that I can't afford the Miami market rentals. So this is a key and an important uh, element of the growth of Miami. And the other thing that it is very important for us commercial brokers is that the reduction on the taxes on the sales taxes on commercial leases. And why is that important? Because in 2 years we're going to have no tax, so that's going to be a significant discount of right now in Miami-Dade County of 6.5% uh, on your rentals. On your rental is going to go 6% lower, so that's going to be a discount for the companies doing the proper thing and moving to Florida. There are two elements that we cannot forget about it.
So
Now,
that's important, but just as a clarification, the tax is dropping from 5.5 statewide down to 2. It's
yeah, we
six and
did
a
lots
half
of
here
credit.
because we have the 1% local option. So here in Miami-Dade County, it'll drop from 6.5 to 2% in approximately 2 years when the unemployment compensation fund is replenished. So approximately 2 years. Just wanted to
Okay.
clarify that. But that's
All
an
Thank you
right.
very
excellent
much.
point, Chipe. Thank
Yeah. Okay, we have 10 more minutes. I do have one more thing that I want to also, I don't know if Tony or Peter could touch on this. So since we have all these major companies down, moving here, Silicon Valley, we have a lot of tech companies, a lot of financial companies, that are moving here. So what about the smaller businesses? How they're going to be able to sustain or be able to obtain some of this office space? Whereas when you're going to see the major development more Class A, and probably I've been seeing is lately a lot of the Class C, Class B buildings, they've been renovating and raising their rent. So how the smaller businesses are going to be able to sustain?
Peter, take a shot at that.
that's a
I
that's a
mean,
good one.
listen. I work with a lot of mom and pop,
I, it's
commercial clients. So
So
it's
yeah,
harder now as the prices are to continue to increase.
yeah. So I feel like I mentioned before. I feel like there are options, and there definitely is potential on the bottom side of the market. But you have to, it has to also be. It's not going to be the best location. It's going to be these smaller buildings. You can't have everything. So I feel like we're talking about different places to go to, and it's going to be further removed than the normal place that Blackstone would be looking to purchase a property.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's enough product there that those options will still be available. It's just not going to be perfect, right?
And
You're bargain hunting.
yeah, it's basically bargain hunting. You're not going to be in the best areas per se. As more development continues to keep on going, even in these urban areas.
Well, real quick, and not to dodge your question, but one thing that Tony was mentioning earlier about the tech companies, and we refer to them as intellectual capital nodes. And as an example for Miami would be like what Austin has been doing, and building up the university and growing the talent locally rather than
yeah.
importing it. Now, Miami has a benefit that Austin doesn't, where historically people want to live in Miami, right? It's a great place to be, and you have the influx of people coming into town. But growing that naturally from the ground up with the intellectual capital node, I think, is something that will expand those tech companies and bring more people into town.
And Tamika, if I could just chime in, I mean, those are all very good points. You know, Fortunately or unfortunately, the small local entrepreneurs and the smaller firms, they have to work harder, do more, and compete with the national groups that are coming in. Just like the national law firms are all starting to come in now, the ones that didn't have a presence here. The small one-off attorney in a not so good location building is just going to have to work harder, pay a little bit less rent, but it's just kind of the story of the entrepreneur. He has to make it happen every day when he gets out of bed and goes to work. And Miami is becoming more a corporate world as opposed to 10 years ago. So,
Yeah,
but the
there's been more.
opportunities are there. Look, we're international. We see people from everywhere. There'll always be opportunities.
And I think the other thing to remember is that if the pricing on the office space for the smaller mom and pops, as we refer to them, continues to escalate, as a result of these other bigger players moving into the market, the bigger players also bring with them a lot of new business opportunities that are going to trickle down to the smaller mom and pops. So I think that just the economic activity that's going to be spurred by these new bigger entrants to our market is going to help everybody. So that I think is a positive for economic activity and helps everybody in the long run be able to, afford the somewhat higher prices that might be appearing in the market for the smaller users. So I think it's positive overall. I'm not thinking that anybody is going to get pushed out or choked out by virtue of having to pay a little bit more to take space in a far more vibrant,
Yeah, because
economically vibrant community. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
okay, we Tony, you wanted to say something else because I have one more person that came up on stage.
No, no, I'm good. Go ahead.
All right, Pablo, would you like to contribute to our conversation before we start wrapping it up?
Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up real quick because I know we're running out of time. But I just had one question about that exact same thing. Like the smaller tenant, not super class A, not corporate, that's looking around for office, is being priced out. Sometimes they don't have the credit. They don't want to do the term, the minimum like 5 year, 3 or 5 year term. Perhaps they're international. They're not established or high net worth, but they don't have the track record. Do you think there's any possibility that the co-office space is going to become a savior to these type of companies or businesses or even mom and pops, like a more flexible type of co-office space to make up for the lack of flexibility of the typical Class A and B that we have here?
100%. As slow and as concerning as all those operations were, March of 2020, turn 180 degrees. All the executive suites, large corporate, smaller independent ones, are absolutely opportunities for the kind of one-off individual entrepreneurial that's being priced out of other areas. And that industry, which last year at this time we didn't know what direction it was going to, is now opening up everywhere. All of them. It's a growth industry for us. It
So
was
would you say,
pre-COVID, and it is again now.
and would you say in Miami it has like much better prospects than in many other cities here in the U.S. because of that, because of our diverse nature and the more fragmented type non-corporate market that we have, with of course luxury, wealth and tech. So perhaps
What I would
it
say
seems like it
for
could be stronger here than anywhere else. I think in the
for
U.S.
for co-working historically, like, it was WeWork out of New York, right? And
Yeah.
it was a brand, like you were belonging to a gym or something, right? It was a brand, and people would flock to that brand. Where now you'll be seeing more and more localized, independent owners of spaces creating their own flexible workspace to fill up the buildings. So it'll be less branded, I would say, less of the perks that you would get with your WeWork and Industrious and those folks, and more localized, catering towards the immediate clientele. And we're working on different software products now to allow building owners the ability to lease space at a more flexible pace rather than these longer term leases.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.
Great question, Paulo.
No,
Okay, so it's now 12:57. Thank you so much, Pablo, for that question. That was a really great question. And adding on to the question I asked. So does anyone else have anything they would like to contribute? It's 12:57 now, so we're gonna start wrapping it up.
That's great. We want to thank everybody. Thanks, Tamika and Tony and Peter and everybody else that got a chance to speak today. We really appreciate you all coming on the channel today. Join our clubhouse. For anybody who's not a member of our or following us on Clubhouse, please do so you can stay abreast of what we were coming out with. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next week's experience. And Tamika, you have anything else?
No, that's it. I just want to thank everyone who joined into this conversation, was able to contribute. All of our people in the audience. Thank you so much for listening about the office space chat we had today. So we'll have another very interesting conversation next week. So I'm looking forward to that. And you'll be hearing more details about that on my social media within the coming days.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you to Miami Commercial. Have a great
All right.
day.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was excellent.